Excellencies, dear guests, dear friends. Thank you for being here today. I am Aleksander Kropiwnicki, head of the Polish mission in Reykjavik. It's a unique occasion. Poland is about to conclude its presidency of the Council of the Baltic Sea States, and in 3 weeks, Iceland will take over. This very special, may I use this expression, relay. This very special relay symbolizes our flourishing bilateral relations. However, the seminar Security and Political Cooperation in the Baltic Sea region and beyond, the seminar that our embassy has organized together with the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and of Iceland and with Varðberg, association will go indeed beyond relations between two countries. We want to show the CBSS in more general context. Thank you, Minister Thorgerður Gunnarsdóttir, for your time, for your great assistance. Thank you, Varðberg, for your hard work on the seminar. Thank you, the Nordic House, for hosting us today. Now I have an honor and pleasure to announce the message, pre-recorded in Warsaw, the message of Radosław Sikorski, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Poland.
Dear Minister Gunnarsdóttir, dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to speak on behalf of the outgoing Polish CBSS presidency. When we took over from Estonia last July, we knew the road ahead would not be easy. Our goal was to strengthen the Council's political pillar through a sharper focus on regional security issues. This was our response to Russia's intensified hybrid and disinformation activities in the Baltic Sea region. It was encouraging to see that we share similar ambitions for the organization's future. The Sopot Declaration captured that spirit and sent a strong message. Our work does not end there. We need more coordination, including on matters related to the law of the sea. We appreciate Reykjavik's support in advancing the CBSS reform and welcome Iceland's readiness to build on the progress achieved. Poland remains ready to support your efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, this year marks 80 years of Poland-Iceland diplomatic ties. Warsaw sees Reykjavik as a trusted ally and a crucial voice in the Arctic and the North Atlantic region. We share views on numerous international issues. Our relations are stronger than ever. Not only due to geopolitical alignment, but also thanks to people-to-people contacts. The Polish diaspora is the largest foreign community in Iceland. Their hard work, enthusiasm, and creativity contribute significantly to your country's success. Ladies and gentlemen, the Baltic Sea and the Arctic are the center of evolving geopolitical and security challenges. Fortunately, the countries of the region understand one another and share responsibility for our neighborhood. We lead Europe's effort within the EU and NATO to strengthen its security and readiness to respond to any threats that might arise. And we must stay on this path. Dear Icelandic friends, I wish you every success with your upcoming CBSS chairmanship. Thank you for your attention.
Now, let me give the floor to Her Excellency Thorgerður Katrín Gunnarsdóttir, the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Iceland.
Thank you, Ambassador. Takk fyrir. Góðan daginn og gott að sjá ykkur öll hér í dag. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to speak to you today about the Council of the Baltic Sea States, a regional forum, while sometimes operating quietly, has played a very meaningful role, as Radek mentioned, in fostering cooperation across one of Europe's most strategic regions. And allow me first to thank Poland, especially for its outstanding stewardship of the CBSS over the past year, as Foreign Minister Sikorski has so eloquently outlined. The Polish presidency has elevated the Council's work to a new level of cooperation and ambition, reflecting the seriousness of the challenges we collectively face. The CBSS was established in the immediate aftermath of the Cold War. Its creation reflected a moment of profound transformation and historic opportunity. The Baltic Sea region, once divided by ideological confrontation and geopolitical barriers, certainly had the chance to reconnect politically, economically, and not least socially. The founding vision was clear: to promote stability, democratic development, economic cooperation, and people-to-people contact among countries that had previously been separated by deep geopolitical fault lines. And in its early years, the CBSS served as a bridge builder. It brought together EU members, non-EU countries, and Russia in a pragmatic and cooperative framework. The focus was broad and also inclusive, reinforcing the idea that regional challenges are best addressed collectively and, of course, in partnership. And for many years, this model proved successful. Since then, however, the geopolitical landscape has changed profoundly. Today, the CBSS operates in a fundamentally different environment, one defined by a full-scale war on the European continent and by a security threat from Russia on a scale not seen in our region for decades. The Council's work has evolved accordingly. Under the Polish presidency, in particular, greater emphasis has been placed on security-related issues, as Radek mentioned, most notably the threat posed by Russia's shadow fleet and its malign hybrid actions in the region. Support to Ukraine has also been high on the agenda, and a main theme of our ad hoc ministerial meeting convened by Sikorski earlier this year. All of this is well also highlighted in the support declaration adopted at the CBSS ministerial last month. As Iceland now assumes the presidency of the CBSS on 1st of July, our objective is to build on the excellent work carried out by Poland and the presidencies that came before it. The aim is to draw on the Council's strong foundation across its traditional areas of expertise, while also recognizing the need to adapt to a rapidly evolving security environment and the implication this has for CBSS work. The importance of strengthening the resilience of our nations and societies will be at the center of the Icelandic presidency. We will work to enhance practical cooperation and also a dialogue among member states with this objective firmly in mind, be it through the Council's working groups or political engagement. A key priority will be civil security, civil protection, and societal resilience through the civil protection network. We will also advocate for a whole-of-society approach that involves governments, local authorities, emergency services, civil society, and also the private sector. Very important. Building resilience is not the responsibility of any single actor, but a collective effort that requires the engagement of society as a whole. The presidency will also focus on strengthening the resilience of vulnerable children through the work of the expert group on children at risk, with particular also attention to refugee children who have experienced trauma, displacement, and instability. And through the task force against trafficking in human beings, we will work to identify new avenues for action in response to evolving forms of exploitation and trafficking. Iceland, we will likewise continue discussions on the future of the expert group on sustainable maritime economy and support regional cooperation on addressing legal challenges linked to the shadow fleet and maritime security. Cooperation will with CBSS observer states, particularly, of course, Ukraine, will be a priority. At a time when Ukraine continues to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity under extraordinary circumstances, close cooperation and mutual learning are of strategic importance for the resilience and security of our region. Iceland will also focus on youth engagement, cultural cooperation, and the promotion of regional identity and cultural heritage. These are not merely complementary activities. They are essential components of resilient societies and of the bonds that unite, of course, our region. Overall, the Icelandic presidency looks to reinforce the CBSS as a flexible, relevant, and proactive platform capable of addressing shared security and societal challenges while upholding democracy, human rights, and sustainable development in the region. At the same time, we must also be clear-eyed about the broader institutional landscape. In our region, NATO, the European Union, the Nordic Council of Ministers, and various sub-regional initiatives all play important roles. In this context, the CBSS must continuously demonstrate its added value. And I must say, I've been long in politics, and since my start as an MP in 1999, I must be honest, CBSS was not the hottest topic, to say. But now, through these very turbulent times, through the pressure that like-minded nations, we have to stick together, CBSS has become a very important pillar in our security in the High North, but also in the Baltic region. So from me, it's very valuable to see sincere interest and approach on behalf of EU, but also coming from Poland and Germany, those countries, especially Germany and Poland, that they are really interested in the work of CBSS, and that will enhance our security and deepen our relationship when it comes to defense and security, and that is something we need now. So this means ensuring complementarity rather than duplication. So I think it's also very good that the member countries, member states of CBSS, we are very much aware of the role of the CBSS, and we take this role very seriously. The CBSS should focus, from my point of view, on areas where it can add meaningful value, not as a competitor to other institutions. Here efficiency and relevance are a key factor. The CBSS must therefore prioritize initiatives that deliver tangible outcomes and strengthen regional resilience in practical ways. Some may ask why Iceland is a member of the CBSS. I often get this question. Given our obvious geographical distance from the Baltic Sea. The Baltic Sea, the North Atlantic, and Arctic regions are, however, very much interconnected. This is not only through history, through security and geography, but also through our economies, societies, and shared challenges. Our cooperation is also grounded in shared values. Democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and multilateralism are not only principles we uphold. They are sources of resilience that strengthen our societies and our ability to navigate these uncertain times. And as these values are increasingly under attack, we need to work together to reinforce our collective security and the foundation of lasting peace, stability, and prosperity. The importance of regional cooperation is also emphasized in Iceland's first formal defense and security policy, which was adopted unanimously by Parliament in February. We are faced with common security challenges which we must address together within the existing frameworks of cooperation. Iceland is firmly committed to be a valued ally, and this commitment will also be reflected in our CBSS presidency. In conclusion, the CBSS is an important and evolving platform for regional collaboration. The Council's origin lie in a moment of optimism and reconciliation. Today, it operates in a more challenging environment, shaped by geopolitical tensions, security challenges, and growing insecurity. Yet some of the core principles remain as relevant now as it did back in 1992, namely that cooperation, dialogue, and shared understanding are essential for stability and prosperity. If we succeed in fostering those principles, the Council will continue to serve as a valuable platform for strengthening resilience and cooperation across the Baltic Sea region for years to come. And let me assure you, dear friends, that under the Icelandic presidency, we are committed, really committed to advancing that valuable goal. Thank you all so much. Thank you. And have a good day. Sadly, I cannot stay and be here with you today. I have an interview in 20 minutes, but enjoy your stay and have a fruitful conversation. Have a good time.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now it's time to start our first panel session, CBSS, Political Priorities and Cooperation. Let me invite the chair and moderator, Mr. David Stefansson, Director of Varðberg, and the panelists, Mr. Artur Harazim, Under Secretary of State, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Poland, Ms. Anna Hjartardóttir, Director General, Directorate for International Affairs and Policy, Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Iceland, and Mr. Gustav Lindström, Director General of the CBSS Secretariat in Stockholm.
Thank you, Artur. Before we start,
Good morning, everyone. I'm David Stefansson, Chairman of Varðberg, and I'll be guiding this conversation for the next 40 minutes. We have an excellent panel here with us today to explore the central question. What role does the Council of Baltic States play in today's security and political landscape? Let me first briefly introduce our speakers. First, Right Honourable Artur Harazim, the Deputy Minister of Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He oversees European bilateral cooperation, consular and treaty affairs and crisis management. He served as an ambassador to Belgium and has been senior figure in the Polish diplomacy since 1993. Second, Mrs. Anna Hjartardóttir, Director General for International Affairs and Security at the Ministry, Iceland's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She brings more than 2 decades of experience from MFA, UNDP, and the World Bank. And third, Mr. Gustav Lindström. He's the Director General for CBSS. He took office in 2024 as serving Deputy Director General and previously led EU Institute for Security Studies, with earlier roles at CSP, RAND, and the World Bank as well. Thank you all for joining us here. Let me maybe open up for broad questions to all three of you. And first, and this is particularly important for the Icelanders, what, and this was touched up by the minister as well, what is the unique role for CBSS today? What does it do that NATO, Nordic Council, NB8 or other regional bodies do not? In other words, why does the CBS need to exist? What gap does it fill, and what is the organization's added value to the current security environment? Maybe first
start.
of you, Mr. Min.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, a very good question. Yes, why we need the Baltic Sea, the Council of the Baltic Sea States? Why this is the moment for this organization? It's true, the Baltic Sea region is well networked, connected. Yes, we are members of NATO, some of us members of the European Union. There is NB8 format, very active. And well, this is the time for the CBSS. This is the only organization today which is forum for high-level political dialogue, consultations, exchange among all democratic states, countries of the region. And we mean extended region with Iceland, how it was explained by your foreign minister. The organization has been established in '92, as it was also mentioned. A year before I joined Foreign Service, I realized during your presentation. Well, it was active, it was used, it was focused on different topics than the security and political exchange. But today we all see that in this difficult, very complicated geopolitical situation, this is the organization where we meet among democracies, among like-minded states, and there is a proof, yes, since the Estonian presidency, Vihula Declaration, we see the progress. Our foreign ministers met this year 3 times. One, it was online meeting, but they met 3 times. There was a meeting first time of the political directors. I was told it was very good meeting, very good exchange. It was a new format meeting of legal advisors. So we see this is the forum for an exchange. Plus, we have expertise of the organization itself and the structure, the director general and his staff, who are helping us, member states, a lot. And of course, there are some projects for the future. It was also mentioned by Minister Gunnarsdóttir, the YAF, yes, the programs for young people, thinking about the future of Europe and of our region especially. So this is, in a nutshell, how I see the role of the organization today.
Thank you. Is it on?
I think this works, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, and great being here today. I fully agree with all of what you said, so I'm not going to repeat, but just 2 or maybe 3 key issues. One, which the minister also mentioned, and well, now I'm repeating you what you mentioned, is that this is a group of countries, like-minded countries, that are now working together, enhancing their collaboration in very difficult times. And unlike what was before, now it's a group of countries that are all NATO members, which also brings us together. This was not the case when the CBSS was founded, so very important. Second is that the CBSS has shown that it can adapt itself. And it was founded on a certain vision, then things have changed since then. There was the moment where members of the CBSS were joining the EU, which called for kind of a revision of how the council worked, and now we're in fundamental different times. And we can kind of use the council in the way it works best for us. And now it is in facing these security challenges and strengthening the political pillar as the Polish presidency has done. And then third, and this comes to the traditional work of the CBSS, where you have these working groups that are doing incredibly important work. And what I've seen, and from my talk to Icelanders that have been working in this group, for example, on child protection, on civil protection, this work has been incredibly important for them. And I've explicitly asked, is this work being done somewhere else? Are we duplicating? And they tell me, no, this is unique, and we want to continue this. So I think these 3 points I would like to highlight.
Director Lindström.
Thank you. And before I begin, I also would like to thank the organizers very much for putting this event together, Varðberg, the Embassy of Poland here in Iceland, also the Polish presidency that I've had the pleasure to work with very closely. Artur, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you and colleagues, and we're also feeling the same now with Iceland as we will be working more closely together. Let me be brief, but let me give 3 very quick reasons for why the CBSS brings value added. The first one has been said, but it needs to be said clearly, and that has to do with the membership. This is an organization that, unlike many other organizations operating in the Baltic Sea region, include Poland and Germany. When you add those 2 countries, you're adding a very large and substantive GDP, population, but also other types of influence and power into the organization. It also has the EU as a member. So the membership is something that shouldn't be downplayed. It is an opportunity. The second point for why the organization brings value added is that, unlike many other organizations in the region, as it originated with a very flexible mandate, so it has 3 long-term priorities. One is a safe and secure region, one is a desire for a sustainable and prosperous region, and the third is about regional identity. When you have those 3 long-term priorities, it gives an organization the ability to see linkages across issues, across challenges, but also to try to deliver solutions that are a bit more broad. So maybe other organizations are much more focused on 1 or 2 issues. For the CBSS, there's a wide opportunity. And we see now, for example, when we have some officials speaking about the Baltic Sea, and they're speaking perhaps about the fact that the Baltic Sea is not doing very well because of the lack of oxygen in the water, there are other groups that say, well, we also have a lot of munitions from the World Wars that are buried in the water. So a lot of different issues can be seen simultaneously. So that is also an advantage for the organization. And lastly, it is a light footprint organization. It is not heavy. For those of you, I know there's a lot of ambassadors here. You have sat in different constellations within the EU, within NATO, other organizations. This is an organization with very like-minded countries, very practical countries, a very light secretariat that I have the honor to serve. And that means that we can adapt. It's not like a big tanker that goes quite slowly. We can really move quickly. And we have seen that now after the Vihula Declaration in 2025, when the foreign minister said, you need to change, you need to reform and refocus and deepen your engagement in security and safety. And that's what the organization did very quickly. And we can come back a bit later to the work of the expert groups, but those would be 3 very quick kind of unique characteristics of the organization. Thank you.
Thank you. I have another broad question for the 3 of you. And keep in mind, so most of the viewers are here online because this meeting is streamed, and this is also to the general public. So keep that in mind for that question. And that is, how do you assess the work or the achievements of the Polish presidency for the last year? I mean, it could be
I should be modest. Yes.
to you, but in the end of the day, what has it changed, and what is the value that it was added to the organization? And maybe, Undersecretary, if you could, like, in 1 minute version, tells us what was the emphasis
But in a modest way,
of the
yes, I
Polish
will.
presidency. And how do you see, what was it, what are the main achievements of that?
Thank you very much. First, we have to remember and understand the nature of the organization. Like Gustav mentioned, it's light. It's not NATO. It's not the European Union where we adopt legislation. So it's a different kind of organization. Second, we also have to remember that presidency, it's also about working and with the previous and the next one. Yes? So it's passing this torch from one state to another state. So we build on the achievements of the Estonian presidency and discussion of the reform of the CBSS at that time. What we have not achieved, I think the number of meetings, I already mentioned three meetings of foreign ministers, good meetings with good discussions, meetings of experts, new meetings also I mentioned with political directors and legal advisors, Director General for Legal Affairs. I see my colleague Cecilia from Foreign Ministry of Iceland who participated in those meetings. So a new discussion which is on the agenda of the CBSS, I believe. 100 events at different levels altogether in Stockholm, in Poland, in Brussels, Strasbourg. There was a very good seminar in Munich where Gustav participated with our deputy foreign minister on the CBSS and the role of the CBSS. And also at the end of this period, our experts from Polish two think tanks presented reports on possible ways for the future development of the CBSS. So, and we are passing this to Iceland.
Mr. Hjartardóttir, how do you see this? Now you're taking over the presidency, looking, to evaluate what is the takeout and what are the achievements on the Polish?
In short, I could just say it's very big shoes to fill.
Thank you. Very kind. Very kind.
I would say the Polish presidency has brought the CBSS to a new level of ambition, but also of activities and even and visibility. The CBSS all of a sudden, or maybe not all of a sudden, but increasingly has become a known figure. Even in Madrid, I think it's today, we have an event organized by the Polish embassy and the Icelandic embassy on the CBSS and hybrid threats in the Baltic Sea region. And this is in Spain, which wouldn't be maybe so evident a few years back. So this is what has been achieved. The focus has been on the political pillar, as you mentioned, and there have been more meetings, more engagements on the political side, which really matters now and is incredibly valuable. And I think that would perhaps be the greatest takeaway, that and of course the focus on security, hybrid threats, and this shared threat assessment we have in the region. Yeah, I think that would be the...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Lindström, I know it's a difficult question for you, but could you maybe enumerate what do you see?
David, this is actually, it's actually an easy question for me because, as I mentioned before, we at the Secretariat get to work very closely with the Polish presidency. I see colleagues here, Katarzyna, who will be speaking later, Minister Harazim, and many others. But I think we have to remind ourselves that when Poland took over the presidency, the CBSS was at a pivotal point in its history. The ministers were taking into account a report by two wise persons, former president of Estonia, former foreign minister of Lithuania, who were actually giving the organization two paths. And the ministers said, well, we want to go on a path of reform and refocus. We want a greater focus on security And that's what the Polish presidency did. So we have to remind ourselves that for the Polish presidency, this was a bit of entering terra incognita. This is a new path for the organization. And they were able to manage that very effectively. And I can say this as not being within the Polish presidency, but being somebody in the Secretariat. And this has meant that under the Polish presidency, it had to navigate very challenging waters because it had to gauge from the member states, how do you see the organization's engagement in security? For some countries, this is very sensitive. They have very strong attachment with NATO. They have a history of how they want to do these things. Other member states maybe feel that this is a great opportunity. And Poland then had to navigate those waters and try to understand, where do we see eye to eye? Where do we see maybe some differences? They wrote several internal papers to try to summarize the positions of the member states going forward. These were discussed, and there was a mapping exercise done. We will hear more about that later to show what other organizations were doing. So Poland did all of this while doing over 100 activities. I'm very familiar with the event in Madrid because they were trying to see if I could be there, but I said, you're doing another event here in Reykjavik. And it's very difficult to be in both places at the same time. So only to say that the fact that there was a navigation of new territory, the fact that there was a need to understand how to go down that path while being very active, and then there were new activities, I think that speaks very highly to the achievements of the Polish presidency, if I may say so. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I turn to individual questions now. Under Secretary Harash.
More difficult, no.
For you. Poland has given a little new momentum on legal cooperation with the CBSS, especially on the law of the sea, and I think the Icelanders would find this interesting particularly. How would you describe this work, and what should come next out of that?
Yes, thank you for this question, because I'm personally was involved in this work. Legal advisors of foreign ministers, they meet in different fora: EU, Council of Europe, NATO, but also in the broadest of the UN. And we discuss questions which are on political, but also international, on the agenda of public international law. And those meetings, I would say, came out of necessity. What we see? We see problems in the Baltic Sea, great challenges. The shadow fleet, we see threats to critical underwater infrastructure. Those are security questions, but also legal questions. How we do apply UN Convention on the law of the sea. And this question was debated in other forums, but then after a discussion with our foreign minister Sikorski, we came to a conclusion, well, this is the group which is most interested, because questions were raised also during meetings of foreign ministers. They asked us for expertise, so Poland decided to convene first very informal meeting in Strasbourg, then more formal in Stockholm at the headquarters of the CBSS. And we are trying to exchange our expertise, discuss problems which are on the agenda, but also discuss possibilities how we can get a unified interpretation of the convention in order to solve problems, to help the freedom of navigation, let's say, in the Baltic Sea. And I hope this process will be continued. We have a VTC scheduled for next week, and also hope that the Icelandic presidency will continue this work. Of course, it depends on needs. If there is a need for such a consultation, then should be a meeting and should be a joint exchange and joint work. And just to conclude, personally, I really believe that it makes sense to discuss first among states which are most affected by those problems we face today in the Baltic Sea region, all those dangers to the freedom of navigation, and then with the more or less united positions or discussed first position go to the both broader forums where we talk to other states. Sorry for a bit too long.
No problem. Can I add one more individual question? That's on the cooperation between Iceland and Poland. Within CBSS and more broadly on going forward. Can you give us a 2-minute version of that?
Okay.
Or 3.
Well,
Cooperation
I
between
have
the
to admit
countries.
that
This
this is my first visit to Iceland. And yesterday I had a very good meeting with my counterpart at the Foreign Ministry, State Secretary, Permanent State Secretary. We had a long exchange on bilateral, but not in bilateral questions, and we came to the conclusion that our bilateral relations are excellent. As a proof, this year only, we had a meeting of prime ministers, a very good meeting. There was a visit of the president of the Icelandic parliament in Poland. We continue to meet in different forums. There is very good cooperation between parliaments. We have Polish community here, the Polish diaspora in Iceland, of which we are particularly proud, I have to say, because I hear so many positive opinions about contribution of Poles to life and economy of Iceland. What we might improve is a trade exchange. There is certainly space for more trade between our two countries. Not only exportation of Prince Polo, but cooperation, energy, and other.
Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
On Prince Polo?
On the trade.
On the trade.
How to improve that?
How to improve it? Poland is a large market, and 38 million people. A large market for investments of Icelandic companies. Financial sector, not only. We can learn a lot on energy for you, but also I see that Iceland might be a good direction for our export. Maybe agriculture products. We'll see. So certainly this is the topic on which we have to think and discuss more how we can improve those ties. And within the CBSS, it's excellent cooperation. I have to say, between our two states, between our two ministries. So only positive message and news on this topic. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Can I turn to Hjartardóttir? I want to ask you on the experience of Iceland towards CBSS and maybe you could elaborate a bit on those priorities mentioned by the ministers for the coming years under Iceland presidency.
Yes. So on the experience, I think it is the experience until now and then what will come. So until now, I think our approach to the CBSS has been quite practical. And it's our engagement, of course, has been through the what is it called again? The committee,
The senior
officials committee, but it has been mostly through the working groups. And there, I'd like to mention the working group on children at risk, where we have participated very actively, and where, for example, the Icelandic model of the Barnahús was taken and scaled up and brought to 2 member states of the CBSS. So that has been kind of the focus today, a very practical focus on practical areas of collaboration. And now we are seeing, as the other members and as was done so well under the Polish presidency, is that the political pillar is gaining strength. So our experience in the past few years has been, and this is what the minister has valued a lot, it has been this increased engagement in on the political side, which covers a lot of areas, and some areas that have not traditionally been dealt with by the CBSS, but are linked to the security environment that we are faced with.
Which areas?
Well, the challenge, the threat posed by Russia, the hybrid threats, the shadow fleet, and just the context that we are living in. And here we share those challenges with the countries in the Baltic Sea region, as these are the same challenges as we face here. And I know they will go into this in more detail in the panel that comes after us. Of course, the countries in the Baltic Sea regions are more subject to these threats, direct subjects, but we share the perception. So that's the experience to date. As to our priorities, resilience will be kind of a cross-cutting theme. And resilience has to do with the abilities of societies to bounce back when there's some kind of adversity. And this can be natural hazards, it can be something that comes from within society, and it can be security threats and even war. So this will cut across our work. We will focus especially like she mentioned too, on civil protection, and we have the civil protection network. There we have a lot to share. We come from a country that has a lot of experience when it comes to especially dealing with natural hazards, and we intend to bring that experience and lessons to the CBSS and share, but also there is a lot of experience in other member states. Then there's the network on child protection, where also resilience will feature, and there we will focus on vulnerable children, refugee children. A lot of the children that are refugees in the region now are coming from Ukraine. So there's an opportunity to look at how we can best welcome them, how we can deal with their trauma, and of course this will contribute to the resilience of our societies. Then there's a network on trafficking in human beings. This working group, I understand, celebrates its 20th year anniversary this year. So we will look into what has been achieved and also try to see what can be done better when it comes to this awful matter, human trafficking, which of course in times of war we see, there's a potential of seeing more of that, unfortunately. So this resilience theme cuts across, and then there are more areas. There's the youth element, of course there's Ukraine. We would like to follow in the steps of the Polish presidency with close engagement with Ukraine as an observer state. Then Iceland will also hold the presidency of the Baltic Sea Parliamentary Forum at the same, that coincides with our presidency. So we will work with Málþingið to try to make the most out of both presidencies at the same time. Then this is more on maybe on the practical side. On the political side, we have, as I said before, we have greatly valued how that pillar has gained strength, and we intend to continue to do that. And I know the minister is very keen on doing that, be it at the ministerial level or at the political directors level, as you mentioned. So exciting times ahead, and we're going to try to do our best in the
Can I
coming
add
year.
one more question?
Yeah.
You mentioned these meetings of the political directors became more visible under in the Polish presidency. Do you see this as a useful format, and will Iceland continue, or is Iceland prepared to continue that format, more meetings of the political directors?
It was a very useful meeting when it happened this year, and this whole strengthening of the political pillar, which this is a part of, has been very useful. The way we look at things, we tend to be quite practical, so there has to be an added value. So I would like to continue those meetings, provided that there is actually something to discuss and something that we want to achieve together. And I think now we're not short of subjects. And it is very valuable for these colleagues, the political directors in the CBSS. This is the only format where we can sit together and discuss this issue. There's no other formal format to do that. And there the focus is on security-related issues. It's on Ukraine, it's on hybrid threats, and it's on the security challenges that we're facing. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Director Lindström, question to you. How do you assess the cooperation between the member states and the CBSS secretariat? So looking at the secretariat, what works well? What could be improved going forward? And what would you ask Iceland to prepare for its presidency when it comes to the cooperation between the secretariat and the member states?
Well,
Like a wish list.
yeah, okay, wish list. No.
For the secretariat.
But let's begin with your first question, which is about how is the working relationship between the Secretariat and the Presidency and the member states in general. I would say that thankfully we have good mechanisms for ensuring a very frequent exchange between the parties. So for example, the Committee of Senior Officials, which is usually made up of ambassadors and other senior officials of the member states, they will meet between 5 and 6 times per year. So, I mean, if you discount the summer period, this is almost a meeting every 2 months, where the officials have an opportunity to discuss both substantive issues, for example, regarding the expert groups, the task force, or any other formation where officials get together, and also to look at administrative issues. So ample bridges for exchanges that way. Then also for the Secretariat, we work very, very closely with the Presidency. We have meetings every week. These are online meetings. They can be very fast if there's not much that we need to discuss. But if there are issues to discuss, we have that opportunity. And we can also invite other individuals to join those meetings. So I see the CSO from Iceland here in the room, Emil, one of them. But I know that there are other colleagues here in this room that we will be working very closely with, and we look forward to that. So what I'm trying to say, lots of opportunities for exchanges. Also, let's not forget, if I take one step back, I was very happy, Anna, that you mentioned the expert groups and what they will be focusing on in your presidency now. But also to remember that what these groups do is very practical. And I know that this will come up in the next session, but just to give 1 or 2 examples, within the work of the Civil Protection Network, through a mechanism where the CBSS has worked with Sweden's Agency for Civil Protection or Defense and Resilience, we had a train-the-trainer program in the Ukraine to teach about emergency response medicine. And this started under the Estonian presidency. Through that train-the-trainer program, 90,000 people in the Ukraine received training in how to do this very quick emergency medical, kind of giving somebody help when needed. Very practical, very quick. Under the task force for trafficking against human beings, we developed an investigation protocol to strengthen countries' abilities, especially their law enforcement, on how to do investigations into trafficking. The work was so extensive and done so well among the countries that Europol, the European Police Organization, engaged and supported it too. And now they're making this protocol available to all European countries through its Siena network. So these are practical examples. And for the Secretariat and the member states, it's very important that we have this opportunity to do very practical outputs. So it's officials getting together. It's very practical work. It's a forum for sharing lessons identified. So I tend to say this. We share lessons identified, and then hopefully we learn those lessons. And then also a great space for sharing good practice. And that's what works well. Your final point about working now with Iceland and the wish list, so far, I think everything is going really well because I know Iceland has indicated that we will be working very closely because we need to support each other. We have limited capacity Also, I was very happy to hear that there will be engagements across the so-called trio, which means the Icelandic presidency, the future Swedish presidency, and the previous Polish presidency. That gives the organization a red thread. So on my wish list is simply to keep up this way of working, and I think that we will do good progress moving forward.
Just a follow-up question. Asking you about describing the cooperation among the CBSS member states more broadly, and this is particularly when it comes to the activities of the Baltic states towards the Russian aggression. As you know, the Icelanders are quite concerned about the Russian aggression. So maybe just your comment on that.
Yeah. So through the CBSS, but other organizations as well, Minister Gunnarsdóttir made references to the great web of organizations engaging in this, from the EU and NATO, Nordic Council of Ministers, the NB8, the Joint Expeditionary Force. There is HELCOM. There are many organizations, but within the CBSS, given the practicality of work, we are able to discuss now under the umbrella of hybrid issues. I think Minister Harasi made references to the legal aspects with respect to the shadow fleet. But we have also had opportunities to discuss not just things on the water, but also under the water. We are hoping to support a memorandum of understanding on the protection of critical undersea infrastructure. If we look on the air, I mean, there have been many air incursions by drones, aircraft, balloons, for smuggling, all kinds of things. You will hear in the next panel about a report that was done outlining all these sabotage and other types of operations on CBSS member states. We have chances to discuss these, and even when we look at space, as you know, there's a lot of jamming of satellite signals affecting the member states of the CBSS. There's a report that suggests that if you add up all the days a member state of the CBSS had some kind of jamming of signals from space, if you add those days, it's over 7,000 days where a member state collectively have had an impact since, I would say, March of 2022 till today. So we have opportunities to discuss how we can address some of these issues. And there are groups that were split off or came out of the CBSS, for example, on border control and cooperation, where they discuss how to go around jamming and where to position certain things to limit the effects of jamming. So extremely practical, and I think this is something of benefit to all the member states.
Thank you. We have to be concerned about timing, of course. Maybe any last comments before we close this up? Undersecretary.
Last comments. Well, out of pragmatism, I would say, this is the time for the CBSS. We share the Scandinavian states, Iceland, also Poland, Germany, the same approach, and we need, this is the moment to use this organization.
Yes, I fully agree. As the minister said at the beginning of her speech, the CBSS has perhaps been an organization that has operated quietly. So not a lot of people know much about it. I did not know much about the CBSS perhaps 2 years ago. I've been doing my homework. I've been working closely with the Polish presidency and the Secretariat. And there are a lot of opportunities. And this is really a unique forum that we should use to our advantage.
Director Lindström.
Yeah, for us as Secretariat, we're simply very grateful to have the opportunity to work together with all the member states, and we wish to continue to serve them as best possible. And of course, we bring the lessons that we also received from previous presidencies, and look forward to the work, now very much with Iceland, but again, it's been a really good experience. I'm relatively new at the organization, but with Poland, very good presidency, so very grateful for that.
Thank you, and big thanks to our panelists for their thoughtful contribution. The key message today is clear. The CBSS has a distinct role, not by duplicating others, as we mentioned, but connecting the regions where it matters the most. Let's carry these thoughts with us as we head for a coffee break. Enjoy, and we will reconvene shortly. Thank you. We'll have like a 15-minute announcement.
Add one. Well, thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. And see you all at 11. At 11, we'll start our second panel session. Thank you. Let me introduce the panelists. Jonas, perhaps you will sit here. Mr. Jonas Allansson, Director General, Directorate for Defense, Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Iceland. Ms. Katarzyna Barcikowska, Chair of the Committee of Senior Officials of the CBSS, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Poland, and Mr. David Stefansson, Varðberg. Let me start with a few more words about the panelists. Jonas is a very experienced diplomat, first of all in, of course, defense, but also in Arctic affairs, consular affairs. He worked in Brussels as Deputy Permanent Representative, am I correct? Mm-hmm. In NATO, and then in the United Nations in New York. Katarzyna is very experienced in various regional structures, such as Council of Europe, now of course CBSS, but also Arctic Council, where Poland is an observer. And David is active in international business development. He's been there for 20 years. And he's chairman of Varðberg, a think tank focused on Atlantic issues and security. So let me start with questions, first with general questions to all three panelists. The world is changing so rapidly. In this rapidly changing world, what is the role for the CBSS to play? How can the CBSS influence the complex geopolitical situation?
Yes, thank you very much. First to say that, I mean, this was also, I think, well reflected in the discussions before. CBSS is what I would coin all-weather forum. It's something that can adapt to different challenges. Now the main challenge is, of course, how we adapt and counter Russia, if we look at it through the lens of security, but of course, without losing sight of the key pillars, all the pillars of the CBSS. And there I would particularly like to mention the political pillar, which is increasingly important because we have to be able to consult and have a shared approach when it comes to the bigger security challenges that we are dealing with. This is, of course, these are nations that have been working quite closely together in different forums as well. These are also the nations that have been leading when it comes to supporting Ukraine. If you look at sort of both on the political side and even, I mean, not least on the military side, they have been leading there. So we are a group of like-minded nations that are working closely together and also in a very practical way. I think that's very important. And I'm particularly pleased to see sort of the priorities of the Polish chairmanship with a strong focus on Ukraine, and that's something that will continue. What I think this forum has to offer is also highlighted in the Icelandic chairmanship, the focus on resilience. That's something very important. We have NATO, of course, dealing with hard security. We have various regional formats, including the Joint Expeditionary Force that was mentioned earlier, the Nordic Defense Cooperation, and so on and so forth. But binding sort of better together this region, because there are certain, I would say, particular challenges, mostly because of the Russian activities. It has been mentioned here, the hybrid domain, maritime security, maritime infrastructure, and so on and so forth. But I know we will deal with that in more details later. So I think it has much to offer.
Katarzyna?
Thank you very much, Ambassador. As the current chair of the Committee of Senior Officials of the CBSS, I must say that this organization has really a lot to offer. And the last year proved that this offer is really very broad. As it was repeated many times, this is the only organization in the region that brings all democratic countries of the region, including Poland and Germany. It also, we also have EU on board, which is an extraordinary situation and brings a lot of added value. The flexibility of the CBSS, it's a great strength of this organization. We can organize ad hoc ministerial meetings, VTCs, in-person meetings, in case of any need, and such need appeared this year at least 2 times. We had a VTC in December of Ministers of Foreign Affairs, and we had a very important meeting in March when also Icelandic Minister of Foreign Affairs was present, dedicated to the issue of the future of Ukraine, but also the NATO, important issues related to NATO. So within the CBSS, we can talk not only about the Baltic challenges as such, but we can also discuss all topics that are crucial from the security perspective. So that's I think, the main role of the CBSS for today. And at the same time, we have a very stable structure. We have a very experienced secretariat in Stockholm. It gives us a lot of support. If we need ad hoc experts meeting, we can make it very easily with the great support of the Secretariat. And I must say that it is really extremely effective platform.
Thank you. David?
Thank you, Ambassador. Well, I speak a bit from the defense and security as chairman of Varðberg. I see the most important role of CBSS as promoting the understanding of the need to cooperate in the region. And when I mean the region, I also mean stretching into the Arctic. I think that's the key. And in looking at the role when it comes to defense and security, because we are emphasizing a lot here in Iceland on resilience, and resilience is focusing within our own society. It has to come from our own society, but at the same time, we can also learn from each other. We can also learn how the Finnish are doing, how the Polish are doing, and so we will take experience from others. And I think the role of this organization could be not only promoting understanding within the states, but also promoting stories of what has been done well in that context. As I mentioned before, we are concerned about the Russian aggression, and we all have to work together how to deal with that question. It needs to be within NATO, it needs to be within a Nordic framework, but it needs to be within this organization as well.
Certainly, thank you. In the context of ongoing CBSS reform and the CBSS ministerial meeting in Sopot, the recent one, how would you estimate security situation in the Baltic Sea region and beyond, Jonas?
To congratulate you again for extremely good presidency and a good ministerial statement. I think it summarized it very well, and what we are looking at now is a new strategic reality in this area. This is now more or less one strategic space. Of course, there are different dynamics in the Baltic Sea and the North Atlantic and the Arctic, understandably. But if we look at it from the challenge point of view, there we have Russia doing both, we have almost daily activities, both conventional, like breaking of airspace. We have spy vessels, or you have breaking of undersea infrastructure and so on and so forth. And then you have the malign influence and cyber attacks and what have you. And these are the challenges that we see, and I think we share them. Of course, they are more prominent in the Baltic states and closer to Russia, but we also see them here. So that's important to work together. And what is the positive side of that story is that we are working much closer together, especially now when we have Finland and Sweden as part of NATO. So this makes this one strategic coherent space, which means that we can actually have much more influence on how the security situation will evolve. And that is a strength that we should harvest even more. And I think the dynamic, or let's say the added value, because it's important, we have all these different forums, so not to make duplications. Political dialogue is important among the leaders of these states, but it's also important to look at what is the added value. And I think as I said earlier, the Icelandic chairmanship, I think, has coined that very well with the word resilience, because it covers a large spectrum of security, which was reflected in the earlier panel. So I think we should make better use of that. Yes, I think that would sort of reflect it, but it was summarized very well in the ministerial statement.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katarzyna.
Well, the broadly understood Baltic Sea region has been targeted by the full-scale Russian invasion in a very acute way. And today, from the one point of view, we are the region very vulnerable, but on the other hand, we are also more resilient than in the past years. That's because we have Finland and Sweden in NATO. That's because we are coordinating towards challenges. We have also a Baltic sentry on the Baltic Sea. We are coordinating our efforts within our alliance to fill the gaps that the new geopolitical situation revealed. Because a few years ago, we were not aware of the fact that we will face so many new unprecedented challenges. Hybrid threats, foreign information manipulation, also election interference. These are all challenges that are new and requires a new coordinated, a very comprehensive answer. And the CBSS is here to facilitate the dialogue, to support member states in creating these common answers to new challenges. So our security is a very important element of the CBSS work. That's why ministers in Vihula in Estonia last year decided to shift the organization's profile. That's why we, as a Polish presidency, we made every effort to fulfill this task that we have been tasked in Vihula, and we have done a lot to change the organization, and Sopot declaration from May 29th this year proved that the security in the CBSS, it's now something that will stay with us. Ministers' discussion was very, very active in Sopot on the shadow fleet, on the critical underwater infrastructure, on the GNSS signal interference, and the opinion that we should use the CBSS in these areas was anonymous, I think. And it was also expressed in the Sopot declaration.
Thank you. David.
So when you ask about, estimating the security situation, when I look at the security situation in the region, I say we have to take it seriously. Just looking at the hybrid threats that are going on in the western part of Europe, and in this region particularly, it's not a war, but it's not peace. And that's a delicate thing to navigate. And so we should be concerned about it. We have to take it seriously. And every organization we have needs to reflect that. CBSS also have to reflect that reality situation. And I just want to add one thing to your former question, and that could, on the role of the organization. Of course, when promoting understanding, I see also, because there is an experience within the organization of youth programs, I would like to see maybe we would develop some of these activities for when it comes to security and defense for young people. I need young people to understand the situation. And we all need young people in that region to understand how serious this is for the Arctic region. We, the Icelanders, need to understand the thinking and the situation in the Baltic states. So I would like to see, it's just an idea, Director, for what kind of a role the organization could play.
Katarzyna, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I wanted to add something about the youth cooperation within the CBSS, because actually we have a great tool for involving youth people, and that's the Baltic Sea Regional Youth Forum, gathering young people from all CBSS countries, and we have a ministerial session, the youth ministerial session.
Exactly, because you have the experience in running these programs, take it into resilience, take it into security and so on. That's the...
When I listen to you guys, I have one reflection, if you allow me. The threat has been uniting us. We are now more conscious, more vigilant, and we are getting better organized. Don't you think so?
Yeah, also about the youth, they are, I think that they see the scale of the challenge. And this year we decided in Warsaw during the youth ministerial session to involve young people more into resilience building process. We organized a tabletop exercise regarding the shadow fleet threats to show them how difficult on the one side and how important it is to coordinate our efforts, and that it's not so easy, that it has to be step by step, and that this trust building is the first phase, and then we can coordinate our efforts. So yes,
so the next generation will be better aware of all this. Thank you, David. Jonas, sorry.
Just to add to this, we tend to focus a lot on the challenges that Russia is posing to us, but we should also think about the challenges that we can pose to Russia. And when we look at this space from the North Atlantic into the Baltic, for example, working closer together within the legal cooperation when it comes to shadow fleet, as has been mentioned, when it comes to undersea infrastructure, and the way we can actually tighten the screws, both to increase our resilience, but also to create certain challenges so Russia has less room to maneuver and use their malign influences. So I think there is also room for that, especially bringing together legal experts and those that are focusing on the maritime domain, working closer together. That builds on the work that's already taking place.
Good point.
In other forums.
It's a good moment to ask you a few questions, because, well, as Iceland is soon taking the presidency over, what's the Icelandic perspective regarding security of the Baltic Sea? Can we call the Baltic region and the Arctic one large area in terms of security?
I think, as I said earlier, I mean, this is an area that's increasingly interconnected. We're dealing with the same challenges. There are, of course, different dynamics in the North Atlantic than the Baltic Sea, for obvious reasons. You have much more, much more traffic of ships going through the Baltic Sea. You have much more complex undersea infrastructure. It's a different dynamic, but we're still facing the same, it's the same opponent, so to speak, yes, that we're dealing with. And that's why it's so important not to become too regionalized in our way of thinking, because the challenge we're dealing with is not compound to one region. It thinks in a broader perspective, and that's why it's so important that we coordinate close together. Of course, the fundamental pillar of all of this is NATO when it comes to hard security. But we also have to look at, other venues where NATO is maybe not so much involved. It has been mentioned, the cooperation on the legal front within CBSS. I think that holds lots of promise. There is a strong, of course, an increasing focus in different forums on resilience. We are, I would say, unfortunately rather good at resilience because we're always dealing with natural disasters. Yes. But I think we have a lot to learn also from Poland and the Baltic states when it comes to dealing with the resilience when it comes to hybrid threats. You are getting drones regularly going through your airspace and so on and so forth. Cyber attacks. So sharing this experience, I think, will make us safer and also make life a little bit more difficult for us, which should also be something we should be thinking about.
And in this context, perhaps it's good to remind one factor. In the beginning of 2026, Iceland introduced its first official defense and security policy. So please tell us a few words how it will improve defense capacity of Iceland and what positive impact it may bring to the partners of Iceland, not only in the NATO, but also in other, as you said, international structures.
I think there are three main themes if you look at the policy. First is how we engage with our partners within NATO, of course, and in a bilateral relationship with the US, and also how we strengthen bilateral and regional cooperation. The second pillar deals with sort of what we should, our homework, so to speak, what we should be doing at home, how we can strengthen our own resilience and defense using the means that we have available. The third pillar of the policy, or the third theme, so to speak, is how we strengthen the institutions and the legal framework. All of this put together will make us stronger, more resilient, and more a stronger ally for our partners. If Iceland does more on security and defense, we also contribute to the shared security of this region, which is, of course, as I said earlier, interconnected. So the more we can do to monitor, for example, the maritime traffic, to fend off in the cyber domain, and strengthen sort of air surveillance and other activities, not least the support that we are providing for our allies that are doing major operation in the region, the safer this area becomes. Also, it has significant effects for the Baltic Sea, because if something happens in the Baltic Sea or in Europe, the North Atlantic will always play a key role. So we need to have strong defense and good situational awareness in the North Atlantic. That's the key for North American homeland and European security.
Thank you, Jonas. And each country matters, and each country can add to the general profit. What's the legacy then, Katarzyna, of the Polish presidency in terms of security situation in the Baltic Sea region and beyond, far beyond, because not only our region is on stake. What has Poland added to peace and stability during its presidency?
Well, we took the task of CBSS reforming from Vihula very seriously. And we were trying to launch the reformulation process very, on the one hand, dynamically, but on the other hand, with a step-by-step approach, taking into account all sensitivities of member states. And it was not easy, but I think we succeeded. We raised, as it was mentioned today many times, we together with all member states and with the support of the CBSS Secretariat. We raised the profile of the organization. We put the security in the very broad sense in the center of the organization's efforts, both on the political level, ministerial meetings, political director meetings. It was the first political directors meeting in the history of the CBSS. It was the first informal ministerial meeting in the CBSS history also. We also were trying to put this security in all 4 CBSS working bodies. Children at Risk group dealing with so-called children at risk. And I must say that 20 years ago, when I was also dealing with the CBSS during the Icelandic presidency here in 2006, it was at the very beginning of the Barnahus cooperation within the CBSS. We went for a study visit. It was really something very new for the organization, and now after 20 years, I think we succeeded. Gustav, I think you agreed with me that with the cooperation on children at risk, we have done a lot. Now we have new tasks. We have migrant children. We have also the problem of weaponization of migration, instrumentalization of migration. That's the task of the other working group, Task Force Against Trafficking on Human Beings. We have, of course, the Civil Protection Network that I would say is the heart of the organization on the expert level, covering so many important issues connected to the crisis preparedness, massive evacuation, things that we have in common, no matter if it's the Baltic Sea region or the broader region. Maybe we face other challenges, but the response is very similar. We have to work out the effective mechanism for answering such crises. Natural disasters, hazards, rights, or migrants coming to our countries because of the conflict, but we have to know how to deal with that challenges. Our Ministry of Interior is very much interested in cooperation with Iceland on crisis management, and I know that many important talks are going on. Youth people, we have already mentioned that, but the legacy is also are also 2 important reports prepared on the request of the Polish presidency. One of them is the report on regional organizations in the field of security, prepared by one of Polish leading think tanks, Center for Eastern Studies. And it was prepared by the request also of all CBSS members, because it was very much needed in our reforming process to avoid duplication. So the report gathered, collect informations on all intergovernmental organizations dealing with the security issues in the Baltic Sea region.
I wanted to ask for that.
Yeah,
How do they complement each other in the Baltic Sea region?
Yeah, but maybe, yes, that's for later on we can talk more about it. And the second report is about, it's the white paper on the Russian acts of sabotage towards the CBSS countries. And it's a great also collection of statistics and numbers that shows very clearly the scale of the threats. The data were collected starting after the Russian full-scale invasion till April this year. and statistics are really very, very clear. And this report is also available on the CBSS website. Both reports are. Well, I think we added the solid bricks to security and resilience building process in the region.
Thank you. I'm so happy to agree. Please allow me for one very brief question to Katarzyna. The structures of intergovernmental cooperation, you mentioned them, and there are so many. There is NATO, there is the EU, the Arctic Council, and of course the CBSS and many others. How do they complement each other in the region of the Baltic Sea, which is not a big sea?
Well, it's not a big sea, but the number of the regional platforms is really high. It's more than 60 intergovernmental only. No, more than 60 interregional platforms for cooperation. And I would compare it to the spider's web. The spider's web is very resilient when it is built with many, many threads. We may not see these threads at the beginning, but that's the point. We have so many cooperation formats in the region for a reason. And they are all creating this great, resilient, strong spider's web that makes us more secure, more safe, and they are complementary to each other. And maybe the CBSS role in the future, and it was one of the recommendations from the report, could be to facilitate the work of these platforms, but obviously not to duplicate them. But I think that all the experience that we can find in the CBSS Secretariat, that is a kind of regional hub today. And I think that all regional platforms and institutions know that if they need a support, they will find it in the CBSS Secretariat. So with all this support, the CBSS could be a great facilitator for the regional cooperation and for all these wonderful platforms that exist in the region.
Great, thank you, David. And so there are indeed so many international organizations we can call players in the geostrategic game. How would you synchronize them? Let's suppose you can. How would you synchronize them to create a good, properly working system of security for the future?
Well, use the framework we have. Synchronize it. For years, I've got these questions when in the Icelandic media is NATO dead? One day NATO is brain dead. The other, then we have some tweets from the president in the US, and this is the last minute of NATO and so on. But the reality is NATO is strong. It has been building up capabilities, an enormous strength. So that's the framework we need to use. But then we need to use whatever local organizations and regional organizations to work within that security framework. Elbridge Colby, Undersecretary, US Undersecretary of Defense, he coined the concept NATO 3.0. You remember NATO 1.0 was the Cold War, NATO 2.0 is then the peace we wanted to build up trade relations with Russia, and we believed in a bit of a different types of peace and security. But now we are looking at NATO in 3.0. the US Undersecretary is pointing out. And what does it mean? It means that Europe has to take a bigger share of the conventional defense of Europe. And this calls for multilateral approaches. That calls for more cooperation and for the Scandinavians to work together. That calls for various regional organizational to work together. But that also calls for organization we understand that has a structure like CBSS has a role to play in that understanding and sharing stories there. So that's the broader picture of that. Do we need to tell the Icelanders that we need to cooperate with the Baltic? It's a constant task for us. We need to tell the Icelanders, listen, it's important for the Icelanders to work with the Baltics. It's a constant task. But I believe in general the Icelanders understand this. We understand there is an urgent need to work with the Scandinavians and the Baltics on defense and security. So I strongly believe that we need to convince the Poles constantly that the Arctic is important. But if you, especially when you speak to young Polish people, they understand that Arctic is important because of environmental questions. And when it comes to defense and security, we must keep in mind there is a strong link between environmental questions and security. Strong links. And young people understand that. So it's a constant play in that.
Exactly. Thank you, David. And we need to wrap it up. So perhaps some last words from each of the panelists.
Famous last words.
Famous last words.
No, just maybe to build on this, because if there is one talking point that every Icelandic diplomat has is keep things streamlined and pragmatic and practical. You know, coming from a small nation. So I think our approach to regional cooperation needs to be driven by this. We need to be result-oriented. We also have to keep in mind that there has never been so much need for political discussions as well. We should not only focus on the practical, but you know, it has to be backed up with strong political consensus. And I think the states in the CPSS are states that are used to working very closely together, and they can actually be a force of change. And we should just be more confident and more active.
Thank you, Jonas. Katarzyna?
I would like to mention 3 short points. One is the cooperation with observer states that we also built on during our presidency. Among the observer states, we have United States, we have Great Britain, we have, of course, Ukraine, and the seminar on security in the CBSS Secretariat in Stockholm in November was a great event with the online participation of former Minister Dmytro Kuleba. So it also raised a profile of cooperation with observer states, and we have numerous events in capitals all over Europe, more than 100 events in total. The second thing is the Arctic, and I only wanted to underline that Poland is an Arctic Council observer, but not only, also the initiator of so-called Warsaw format meetings. These are meetings of all observer states and the current Arctic Council chairmanship. A very useful format that gained a lot of importance, and many Polish scientists also involved into environmental cooperation in the Arctic region. And last, I would like to say that the CBSS is really a great, flexible and extremely effective tool, and we should not hesitate to use it.
Thank you. David?
For the coming year, for the organization, keep it simple. Few items, do it well, no overlapping, or try to overlap, not to overlap things. Keep in mind when it comes to security and defense, this change that is going into this multipolarity nature of defense of Europe. So the organization has a role to play in that. It will be NATO, but within several regional organization and regional cooperation. And I think it's important to understand where we are heading, and I believe CBS has a role to play in that.
Thank you, David. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And so we can continue our discussion during the buffet lunch, which is waiting. Good luck, Iceland, with your presidency.
Thank you.
Thank you, Varðberg. Thank you, Nordic House. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.